Good afternoon and good evening, and you're very welcome back to episode 37 of the podcast for this year, the Women's National League podcast here on finalwhistle.ie with myself, Breifne Earley, and of course, as always, Aaron Clarke in the co-host chair to go through all the things that have happened over the last couple of days. A bit of a bonus episode this week. There's just been so much news in the league. Of course, we had Kieran McCormack on over the weekend after Treaty's big announcement. They had a press conference during the week as well, and it's a really, really exciting time for football in Treaty. But another club that are enjoying time in the Women's National League at the moment are Peamount United. We're delighted to have their head coach, manager, whatever you want to call him. He's the boss over there in PRL Park. James O'Callaghan's going to be joining us very, very shortly to talk about all things title winning over the last couple of days. They've just...
Are you breaking out about We Are the Champion, eh?
Oh, not quite. No, I'll let him do that in a couple of minutes. But it's been a really, really good time for Peamount. They've regained the league against probably all expectations coming into the season. The manner of which they've done it is impressive. It's really, really been a fantastic season for everybody attached to Peamount, particularly given, I suppose, how everybody, including us, probably wrote them off a little bit at the start of the season.
I thought they had a strong squad. I thought they'd be a top 3, top 4 team. But what they've done has just been ultra impressive, ultra consistent. You lose players mid-season and it's still like, oh, it's grand. We'll just keep winning. And I think the magnitude of that win against Wexford last week just sort of showed the desire and determination for Peamount. And like, there's no doubt they're worthy league champions. Looking forward to hearing what the boss has to say, because there's no doubt the last couple of years have been difficult with losing the 2 league titles, and like to regain it in that such fashion.
Don't mention the war. We're on a positive note this week for Peamount. We've given them enough stick over that capitulation a couple of years ago. We're not going to focus on it, I promise.
Oh no, I'm 100% going to focus on it, because I think that's what built the character of Peamount United, and that's what makes the Peamount United success even more sweeter, because everybody said when that happened they'd probably never win another National League again. And then you look what happens, and it's just to see them win the league, and in that sort of fashion, it's been nothing short of impressive. I said last week on the show, and I know James in the background will hear me saying this again. I think it's probably been the most impressive Women's National League win in a long, long time.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm going to try and find out now from the man himself. We'll welcome James to the show. But James, the first question I have is, how much are you paying Aaron to say all these things, writing you off, to make your team talks? That's so much easier on a Saturday afternoon.
No, it doesn't have to be me. There's other crowds who are writing them off even worse. The dynasty is over.
There's lots of that, yeah. But no, it's a privilege to be on the show today, lads. Thanks very much for having me on.
Yeah, in all seriousness, you're very, very welcome, and congratulations. We did write you off at the start of the season, and you've proven us and everybody else who did so wrong, I suppose. The manner of the result that you heard us talking about there over the last 12 months is just phenomenal, given where we were maybe 12 months ago. Your players been tapped up, players moving on to other clubs, new opportunities away from PRL Park, and you've basically done very little else in terms of, like, there wasn't massive recruitment. You brought in a couple of players, but it must be a kind of a bit of a surreal experience now coming back, having given that little bit of an FU back to anyone who kind of doubted you, including us, over the last 12 months.
Yeah, no, it's delighted. We were delighted to win. It was great to get the win down at Clarke Park as well, because that's always such a tough place to go to. They've got some great players down there, and I think on the day, with the girls, we realised what was at stake. Compared to previous seasons when I think you may have reminded me before in that show a few times, the last game of the season. But I think we've learned from that, and in the game on Saturday, I think it was one of our best performances of the season, because again, Wexford had most of their big players playing in that game, and you're down in Clarke, and I thought we were really strong. It was one of our best performances we've had down in Clarke Park ever, I think. And in the second half we kicked on, and it was brilliant to get the 3 points, and we were all relieved and relaxed.
It's the kids, James, that's making the big difference. Like your Jesuit Sherrills, your Ellen Doolans, they don't look out of place. Like, that must be the most special thing to see, the amount of youngsters that have helped you over the line this year and helped you with success, because like, you've had to bring them through. Probably some may not have got the opportunity if things didn't go the other way, but like to see them step up, and to Ellen Doolan to score the 2 goals against Wexford to seal the league. What's that like as a coach?
That's fantastic. But in terms of players, the team and stuff, like the whole season it's been a long season, and starting in the pre-season last November, December, we lost it. lost a chunk of players, you know, and it was tough at the time. But I still knew we had some great experienced players in the team that were still there. And once they all committed, I knew things could go well once everybody committed. Like I must have had about 200 cups of coffee in last November and December, just meeting players and stuff like that, just sitting down and chatting to them and stuff, just see, you know, and everybody bought into it, you know, apart from the ones that left, and you know, which happens every season. Players leave every season, they come and go, you know, and then there was a couple of players we had identified that we think we could add to our squad, and we brought them in as well. And you know, and then when the season kicked in, there was a lot of young players like Jess and Ellen and Freya and Mia and stuff. These players were there. People probably weren't aware of them as much, you know, at that time. But as the season kicked on, you know, even young Jess has been, you know, she's marked a lot of the experienced players this year, and she's done very well in them games in the role that she's played for us. And Ellen has come in, and she's played every position, nearly apart from in goal. But she's up top now. She's been knocking the goals in, which was brilliant, because we lost Kate Mooney. Again, people don't realise this. Like, Kate Mooney just was the league's top goal scorer, and she was just gone. And we had to react to that. And Ellen stepped up there, and she's been real. The 2 goals she got on Saturday were excellent. You know, and then young Freya's only 15. She doesn't turn 16 now till next month. Which is incredible when you think about it. These have been all brilliant, and the experienced players have stepped up to the plate as well. They've all been kind of refreshed this season. You know, they keep going and stuff. You see Jetta Beryl there. That's her first league title. She's won. I thought she had won a few before that, but she hadn't. That's her first league title she's ever won, Jetta Beryl. You know, so I was delighted for the likes of that as well. You know.
Well, that's because you've been playing out of position for the best part of a decade. Like, it's probably the revelation in terms of surprise positional changes this season across the entire league was. I thought it was a one-off combat against the pace of Emma Doherty when she played centre half up in Sligo in the opening game of the season, or one of the early games of the season. But you've stuck with her, and she's been phenomenal.
Yeah, that's Jetta. She was given out to me at the start when I convinced her to play centre back. You know, again, Jetta has been brilliant playing centre back. You know, she keeps James on a winger. You know, I'm not a centre back type of thing, but she's, you know, she sweeps up unbelievably well. Balls in behind, her pace is lightning, and you know, and she complements to the players around her as well, and they complement her. But we first put her back centre back. It was mid last season, when she actually went back centre back. And I think that kind of coincided with her improved run of form last season, which led into this season as well. But she's been probably an unsung hero there, in terms of what she brings to the team. And nobody would have thought of her centre back, but I think she's brilliant there.
I'm not going to disagree. I think her and Chloe Maloney for me have been two of the standout centre backs this year. But like even if you think of the partnership in there, like Chloe was somebody who could have dropped out of the National League, left Peamount a couple of years ago to go to Galway. Then obviously when you had players leave, she came back again. And like players like that of that sort of nature, I think people don't realise, you know, they've been around the league so long just because they haven't necessarily been the star players, but like them sort of players really stepped up for you. And I know everybody talks about the Karen Duggans, the Sives, but it was a massive squad effort this year.
Yeah, and Chloe in particular, she'd been playing the Gaelic as well, and she did very well at that. But she travels up from Clare, and she lives in Clare, you know, and she travels up for training from Clare, and you know, so it's a phenomenal effort put in by her, and she's had her ups and downs as well over the years. You know, but her fitness this year it's gone on to another level. You know, and her partnership with Jetta and even with Dervla there, and Tara Hannah and Lauren and Nemo and Neve, the goalkeepers, you know, everybody collectively defensively, you know, have been, you know, they've been superb. They've been really, really good.
Yeah, it's been kind of nice to watch from a distance as well, and they seem to seamlessly fit in as well. I know Dervla, due to I suppose work and college commitments specifically, tends to miss the start of the season in recent years, and then available through the second half of the year. It kind of coincided, I suppose, from a club point of view with Tara's injury, so there was a nice kind of you didn't lose quality when Tara went down injured, even though Tara seemed to be really making an impact both with the club and with the country ahead of the World Cup. In terms of the plan going forward, is that something we're likely to see towards the start of next season as well, or have you even got that far ahead?
Again, Tara had been probably considered one of the best players of the season this year. She'd been playing really well. Massively unlucky not to make the World Cup squad. I thought she was a shoe-in. I was devastated for her when it didn't happen, But that's football, and Tara has to bounce back from that. She just has to pick herself up, and she has, in fairness to her. And she was going great, and then she was on trial with Man United, which is fantastic to be on trial with Man United. But she was unfortunate. She got an injury, which then has ruled her out for a couple of months. But then that coincided then with Dervla kind of coming back, and what a replacement to have with Dervla. And Dervla, she popped up with that screamer against Bohemians. When everybody thought the goal went over the line, and it didn't go over the line earlier in the match. But she popped in then with that screamer right at the end, and she has that in her locker. Dervla, I've been coaching Dervla since under 14s from different stages, and she has that in her locker to do that. So she's had a massive impact on us. She got a penalty there against Treaty then as well only 2 weeks ago. So she's been brilliant. I would hope she's studying to be a doctor. And she travels from Leitrim. It's crazy the effort these girls are putting in. People don't understand the effort that has to be put into playing at this level, and to get yourselves into the shape that they do. So it's brilliant to see.
I love how you mentioned that Bows game, because for me, that Bows game, I think, turned a lot of voice because of the fact that, yes, it was a late winner from Dervla, but it was the magnitude of the fact of the never die attitude. I think that's where people probably realised, okay, Peamount can win the league. When did you think, James, that you would win the league? When did you actually think that, okay, this is possible?
I don't know. I know we've been working really hard, like we've got a lot of wins in the second half of matches this season, and against Wexford on Saturday, it was no coincidence that we pushed on in the second half. I'd like to think, obviously you get an element of luck and all that as well, but I'd like to think, our pre-season program, we had Ken Robinson in running the girls in Phoenix Park down the hills and stuff like that. And you had them all on a running program, and the build up to pre-season we did, and the girls really bought into it. So and then our training, we kind of freshened things up with our coaching staff. Emma Dunhill came in as assistant manager. We had Cian McDonald came up from the 19s, and Brian O'Sullivan came up he's from Waterford. He's a top coach as well coming in there, and Derek Masson was like goalkeeping coach, and Desi Baker doing strikers training as well, which people probably aren't aware of. David Burke had come in as well to help out. From a coaching point of view, the intensity in our training sessions, it's been really, really good. And I think we've stepped it up, and it's a lot more fresher this year. Like obviously we lost Vinnie Patterson, which was a big blow to us at the time. But I'd like to think the way we've trained this year, and the hunger we've shown to reach the levels we have, is what's kind of stood to us in terms of pushing on in second halves of the matches and kind of getting them late winners. I think that's it's been unbelievable, and there's been a mental toughness there as well. The resilience was shown big time.
Yeah, we see that across a lot of sides. I suppose even Shell's last night, there might have been a good bit of fortune around the winning goal, but it's that ability to find that goal in the last minute of the game or in injury time to turn 1 point into 3 or even 0 into 1 at different points through the season is the difference between the teams that finish top of the table and just the also-rans effectively. In terms of, you mentioned some big names there, Desi Baker, of course, a League of Ireland legend, Ken Robinson, well known to anyone in the sports field. He's been on the men's equivalent of this show talking about his time at DCU and the link up with Bowes at the time. They kind of add extra value. And we look at then all the list of names you've mentioned and the expertise that comes in. Is that something that Peamount has always had, maybe against some of the sides where it's down to 2 or 3 individuals running teams and expected to deliver on the same level?
Well, I think for the girls this year especially, it's very important that you can create a really good training environment. You know, it has to be like, you know, it has to be really top of the range. You know, because the girls are putting. So you've got girls traveling from Leitrim, from Clare. You know, they're putting a hell of a lot.
As if it's the back of nowhere. Like Leitrim's a place. I'm very proud of it.
Come on, Leitrim's in the back of nowhere. Come on, don't even go there.
Leitrim is a fantastic place. You have to produce there with Bairn for us. It's top place. But I'm just saying, distance wise, the amount of hours they have to travel to and from training. So it's important things are right. And as I said, I think, you know, Emma and Keane as well, and Brian and Derek especially, because they're the core of our coaching staff. You know, the effort they put in, and they brought new freshness to things this year. And the players, as I said, they've been on their own training programs themselves. Like we're doing 3 nights. We do 3 pitch sessions a week, and they do their own gym sessions as well. On top of that, and we have an analysis session. You know, so there's a lot. Like they train like professionals. People don't realize it, but they don't get paid now like professionals, but they train like professionals. And I think this is a factor in the league in general now. I think things are stepping up as well, and other teams are training harder as well. You know, but I really think that's going to help us this year.
I just don't jump in there for 1 second, because you talk about the professional status and other teams coming in, and fundamentally I suppose the reasons why people wrote you off last year hasn't changed. It's still moving towards a more professional league, a higher resource league, and the link ups for facilities and finances with the men's league is getting, I suppose, further and further away from entities like Peamount and the facilities and resources that they have. Can Peamount compete? And I'm hoping the answer is yes, but realistically, can Peamount compete in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? Will we still see Peamount United in the league in the form they're in?
Well, I would like to think that we will. I think it's kind of ironic that for a women's national league side, for the pressure put on them that you can't stay in this league or you can't compete unless you have a men's team backing you up. It's quite kind of crazy when you think about it. If there's a women's team that are looking to go stand alone in terms of not be supported by a men's team, I think that should be encouraged. I think they should be helped as well along the way, and it's up to Peamount themselves to bring in private investment into the club. But you would like to think then government FEI funding as well could be, improved as well to help all the clubs in the league. I can't see why it can't go hand in hand with the men's team supporting the women's teams as well. I see absolutely no reason. I think we've proved today for the underdogs this season. I think that we've shown that we can do it, and it should inspire and give hope to all the other teams as well.
Considering we've mentioned funding and stuff like that a little bit, considering what's available at Peamount compared to other clubs, and you see what other clubs are offering, how sweet is this National League title? It must be right up there for you.
Yeah, listen, we had 1-2 league titles in a row, and then we were going for our third in a row, and we should have got over the line. We didn't. Losing it the way we did was a big blow. And then last year, and then people don't probably talk about much, but we got a 3-point deduction last year as well, and that really kind of hurt us. People aren't aware how kind of impacts on us within the team, but it did, and we wobbled with that big time. But I thought we recovered, and I think we've learned from the last 2 seasons, and it gave us that hunger and the drive and the resilience this year really to push on. So probably this year, I think as well, the standard of the league in terms from top to bottom has improved as well. The gaps have narrowed there. And there's I know I've said this before, and people are saying all the time there's no easy games, and there isn't really now anymore compared to the way it used to be. There was always a couple of easy games, but not anymore. So anybody, and I said it, like Treaty given us some of our hardest games, during the year, and they've only won 1 game, I think. So it's we're all that in the background. I think this has been probably the sweetest league win of ever. I think it's been pretty cool.
From a personal point of view, James, if we rewind, say, 10, 11 months back to that period last September, October, November, December, when whispers were starting, people didn't quite know what was going on, players weren't quite committed, and the way things panned out, how disappointing was it on a personal level, having worked with some of the players who went and took other opportunities? Was it for you, or is it just a part of the game that you just have to accept?
No, I'm there now. It's my 7th season. And I would have built up a lot of connections, a lot of relationships with players over that time. And and when players did decide to move on, it was tough to take at the time, being honest. But I'm in the game long enough as a player and manager now to realise that's football. It's football, and it happens. It happens every season. There was a lot more media attention now, I think, to this time because there was a lot of high profile players involved. But it is what it is, and you can't be bitter and you can't bear grudges to anybody. You got to wish them luck, you know, and that's what I did. And they moved on themselves. But we had to focus on ourselves. Simple as that.
What's that off season like for you, James? Was there ever any contentment or any ever, this potential thought of, am I done? Have I had enough? Or what was that off season like? Because I think for Peamount, I think people realise Peamount would still be a force in this league as soon as Karen Duggan put out that tweet last October, November, being like, I'm staying. What was the off season like for you?
The off season was it was really challenging and really tough, but very enjoyable at the same time. Believe it or not, it was once I decided myself that I was going to commit. I just really felt there's a big challenge lies ahead here, and I was kind of thinking I kind of like this in a way. It kind of motivated me to see what was going on and the kind of negativity that was coming at us from the media, certain sections in the media. Not by used to now, lads. You've been very positive towards us. But
at times.
At times, yeah. But no, but there was, and there were certain things in particular really kind of, you get annoyed about. But when I kind of reflected on it, I said, yeah, we go again. And then I sat down with the coaches, and I sat down with Karen and the senior players, and I knew they were all on board. I knew it was mind you, I had to have about 200 cups of coffee back in November, and going back and forth with players and the new players as well, trying to bring in new players stuff. So that was probably when the best work actually got done, was back in November and December, in terms of nailing people down and getting them to buy into the plan that we had. And we did have a plan, and I think and I really feel we created an environment this year where we were getting the best out of players, and people felt very positive. Like a lot of stuff, we did a lot of stuff off the pitch. There was, we obviously in pre-season we were with the army and stuff like that. We've been up in the mountains and lakes having recovery sessions, and we went to the Vico Bats, at time we done yoga, There's all this stuff that's happening in the background, which is great for mental health as well of the players, and it's great for bringing players together and creating that positivity in the team,
In terms of that important period for planning for this season, we're kind of getting back into that cycle again. League title is now in the bag. A couple of games to play. Probably, what's the focus for that? Is it now a chance to kind of have a little bit of a party, or is it a case of we want to win the last two games and really set a marker for where we are, and who Peamount United are?
It was brilliant to win the league, as it says, with 2 games to play, because usually when you get to this stage, if you're going to win a league or you're going to lose a league, it's usually the last game of the season, and it just finishes then. That's the end, which is just be tough, But this year, obviously, our last match is not till the 11th of November, so it's like 3 weeks away type of thing, So, which is kind of sweet, and it's because you can enjoy it then that bit more. Obviously we play Galway and Sligo, and we want to win them games as well. So it's just we just wait till the 11th of November then to pick up the cup.
If I was to ask you at the start of the season, after 18 games, you'd be 16 wins, 1 draw, 1 defeat. You could probably never imagine the magnitude of the amount of points you'd picked up this season, could you?
No, obviously that would be, if you said that to me at the start of the season, I'd be saying you're in fantasy land. It's never going to happen, you can't look like that anyway. You can only concentrate on your performance and the next game, and you're hoping you're going to do well. As I said, there was some lot of key moments during the year, especially down our first match against Athlone. They had come in second in the league, won the runners up in the FAI Cup. They just won the President's Cup, and we had to play them in their own backyard on their Astro. So that was quite nervous going into that game, but it was a great performance we put in, and I was delighted. That really helped us push on. And then obviously key matches, then beating Rovers in Tallaght Stadium, the last 10 minutes. If we had lost that match, we would have gone level on points. By winning it, we went 6 points up. So that was massive for us to beat Rovers in Tallaght Stadium. And obviously them beating Bohemians that time, the last 10 minutes of the game, pushed us on then going into the latter ends of the season.
In terms of, I suppose, the reasons why you can attract players to your club, obviously the chance of success, opportunities is a big thing, but the opportunity to play in Europe traditionally has been something that the big players in the league look to kind of, who's in Europe, can I get to them this next season? You now have that little carrot to attract players. Does that change your approach? Does it change the type of player you want to recruit? Do you feel you need to recruit within the league, or what's your plan for the next couple of months?
I think winning the league, the best thing about winning the league, apart from all the hard work you put in that season, and when you win the league, which is a great achievement for everybody and the club, it's actually getting qualification for the Champions League. It's huge. People underestimate how big a thing it is for all the girls and the managers within the Women's National League. It's massive. So we're lucky enough now. We're going to go and play in the Champions League next season. So our last time. Well, one of the last times when we played Glasgow City, when we got beaten in penalties in Glasgow, we got so close, and that was a really good Glasgow side because they'd only been to the quarterfinals of the Champions League year previous. So that showed us, we feel a little bit more we could have got through. So this year again, obviously we have to sit down with Peamount. We have to try and draw up a plan and come together, to put things in place. I'd love us to be able to. I'd love for the league, for a club, a team, at some stage to push on in the Champions League, just to show everybody how great the league is. Because I still don't think it gets near enough recognition that it should.
No, I agree. I agree with you totally. And like, the funny thing is, like, when we talk about the league, and like you've said it a few times on the show already, James, like the caliber of the games against each other. Like we see last night in particular, Sligo Rovers have only won one game this season, pushed Shells till the very end. Two games this season. But like, you look at that, the teams haven't won and they're still competitive. And like, I think me and Breifne spoke about it last week. Like, even things like the number of goals teams are conceded, we don't see as many high scoring, massive cricket scoring games as we did in previous season. But like, what do you think is needed though for an Irish team to sort of make that next step in Europe?
Yeah, and just even for Sligo there, having to travel down to Dublin midweek on a Wednesday night, I felt sorry for Steve. I felt sorry for Stevie from having to do that, and they were so unlucky in the game then to concede in the last minute. Listen, I think we need a bit of luck. We need a team needs to get a good draw as well in that competition. And we need to keep persevering. I think teams have they're training more now. They're training harder, so I think the standard is improving. I'd like to see less players leaving the league. I'd like to see less players feeling like that they have to leave the league. There should be better rewards for them to keep them here, to try and grow the league a lot better. Because the better players we have in the league, the better chances we have of progressing. But the experienced players that are still in the league are really good. Don't get near the recognition that you could list them all off. And then the young players coming through, fantastic. I'd be really excited for the international teams with the young players coming through into this league from the 17s upwards, feeding in now. It's incredible. So it's about, can you pull a team together out of all that mix, and go in there and compete and believe you can do well.
Just want to grab a follow-up question to that, because you've said, me and Breifne spoke about it multiple times. The next generation, James, in that sort of, because you talked about the younger players coming through, how good can the next generation be compared to the Karen Duggans, Kylie Murphys, Pearl Slattery's, the iconic players in the league at the minute?
It's like, we can talk based on the current crop that's in Peamount. If they keep going the way they are, and again, it's very important that they keep themselves grounded and don't lose the run themselves either, because they're getting a lot of attention. So it's important that you realise what that is. You're only as good as your next game. So it's very important that they keep going. So I really think, again, the likes of the Karen Duggans and them players who've been going at it for years have been unbelievable servants to this league. But there's a whole new batch coming through, and it's very important that, as I says, the funding for this league is improved dramatically in terms of government, FEI, UEFA, and private investment is found, to create this platform for these young players to thrive and to do well and to get the best out of these players. You shouldn't feel you have to go abroad to become better players. We should be able to do it within our own country. Look at the rugby, the way they keep all the best players in the leagues, and and are phenomenally successful at international level. Like, because the gap is not huge from what's happening in Ireland compared to what's happening in Europe. It's not huge. So with better investment, like we need a watershed moment the way the international team had it a couple of years back. The league needs something like that, I think, really to push it on and and to make it one of the top, potentially become one of the top leagues in Europe.
You've raised a whole lot of questions for me in the last few minutes about where I'd like to go, because we're running out of time. I'm aware of that. But the one I want to ask is specifically, this week, the FAI announced, actually a group of senior men's players announced a scholarship program to the PFAI, and this group of players who put money aside for a COVID relief thing for the League of Ireland, which is going to focus on one 16 or 17-year-old male and one female player. What's your thoughts on that? Because there's an argument out there that maybe it's too little, focusing on one or two players rather than maybe looking at the bigger picture. Should it be the players who have to come up with that themselves? Should the FAI be doing this? We've seen these scholarship programs before. They tend to be a little piecemeal when funding is available and not really part of a wider strategy. What's your thoughts on what's been announced this week?
Yeah, listen, you welcome it. It probably doesn't go far enough, really. But it's a positive. It's something good. Listen, I think if you can keep players in the country, brilliant. Like a lot of players, I would encourage a lot of players that to go to college, to go to the university, play, to get a degree. If those players can be helped along with paying fees, along the way, brilliant. That's great. I know I coach in Minute as well, and they give it. Barry Prendeville's out there, and along with Billy down in Galway and all the guys, they give good scholarships as well within that. But when you want to keep the best players in the country, I'd be encouraging them to go on to university, and whatever scholarship programs that can be found to give to them, I think the better. I think even as a transition year now, football program, a lot of the younger girls are on it. That's brilliant. They're going to become full-time players for that period of time, which is great, and it's that leads them back into school. And then if you keep them in colleges, then it means you're guaranteed to keep players in the country until they're 22, 21, 22, which I think is a really positive step.
I think Amber is a prime example of that. Amber Barrett left Peamount with a master's degree, now playing professional football. And I think for the problem, what a lot of people don't think is the future, what happens after football. You're not going to make the money to be able to retire on playing women's football. So you need to have that sort of future. And I think that's why it's even as important. If players go away at 23, they're still going to be successful. I think there's a lot of opportunities for players to grow and to on the educational side as well as on the football side in Ireland. And that's why I'd be one who'd be massively in favour of more players going to college, getting their education, because you need that for the rest of your life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Listen, unless if you're an 18-year-old and you're getting offered a really good contract to go away to one of the top teams, I wouldn't be stopping that. If it's a really good contract, but a lot of the time the contracts probably aren't what people probably think they are. So I think it's really good if you're anyway academic, I think you should be really looking to get into the universities and get your degree, but be playing as much football as you can alongside that, because it goes hand in hand. And it's very hard to leave home when you're only 18 as well, and you're going into a certain new environment. It's very, very tough to succeed. You're much better prepared if you had a degree behind you and you're a little bit older, like Amber Barrett. Amber Barrett had a great time going to college, university, and playing with Peamount, and she was that bit stronger, her mentality and her character. Then she was ready to go, and a big move when she went to Germany that time.
In terms of, I suppose, what Peamount and other clubs in the league can do to encourage those girls to stay in the country, because there needs to be a viable alternative to even a poor contract elsewhere can be seen as better than what's been offered in Ireland at the moment. So what can clubs in your position do to make an environment that players want to opt into? Because girls will make a decision based on other factors, not just on the financial implications.
Yeah, well, that's what I say when I was talking about our coaching team in Peamount. Is you got to be able to let the players know, and the players have to believe it, that they're coming into a training environment where you're going to excel as a player, and you're going to reach, you're going to get the best out of you. And I think in Peamount, there's some great facilities in Peamount. We got to have our own little gym there. We've got plenty of football pitches. We've got analysis room. We've got all the stuff you need to create an elite training environment. And I think you know, and also we have a good connection with the colleges. In Maynooth University especially, there's a good kind of relationship there as well. So stuff like that is really important, and it's important to the club then they attract private investment, so you can reward the players financially. You know, to certain levels, different degrees. That's important as well, and that aspect of it really needs to grow and develop. And also the profile of the league needs to grow. You know, players need to see that their profile is rising all the time, and they're getting to compete against top players on a weekly basis. You know,
I think I agree with the profile for me is something that I sort of, and we've had conversations on this show about off the back of the World Cup. I don't think the profile has gone massively skyrocketing through the roof since the World Cup, and that was the one thing you'd hope is that Ireland go to a major tournament and then we see a massive spike in the profile of the league. And I think a lot of that is down to, there's a lot of factors involved in it, and I think there's a lot more that everybody needs to do to grow the league, not just the clubs, not just the FAI. Yes, we need a lot more funding, but I think media side of things as well. And like you talk about other sports, like other sports get a lot more when they probably shouldn't, and it's one thing that I have a bit of a gripe with, and like you'd love to see the stories that we have in this league that probably nobody knows about. Half the stories that some of these players have. Like the prime example for me, James, is how many doctors have you had work with? Have you had under you at Peamount United? I can think of a few. You know what I mean? And people probably don't even have a clue about some of the others.
Yeah. Now listen, it's even when we won the league last Saturday, I picked up the newspaper Sunday morning, and the ones that are in the shops and stuff like that. But you know, people do still read them papers. There was very little in them.
James, you're showing your age now, James.
Yeah, I know.
Players don't read those papers unless they're in it themselves.
Yeah, but I go into the shop straight to the back page. I'm looking for something. But no, there was very little in it. You know, very little in about the Peamount at the winning the league. You know, you see, like I'd really, you know, I'd like listening to yourselves. You know, we train on a Thursday night, and when I finish training, kind of I'd put on I'd be look at the phone and stuff like that, and then your show will be on. It'd be very entertaining listening to you, you know, trying to raise the profile of the league, and you're very clued into what's going on, and I can kind of, you know, I find it very interesting to hear some of the stuff. Most of the stuff I'd agree with. Some of the stuff I'd be saying, I'm not sure about that now.
Do you know what I said this on the show last week. I walked out of the Aviva Stadium after the Ireland game, and he's like, I hope you're going to give us credit. You're going to give us credit now. And I just laughed at it, because I was like, you know, because when I say something, the best part is when I say something and someone in the ground turns around and says something to me, you're just like, okay, so at least you listen to it. So I know you listen to what I say.
No, I do. And in fairness, I give credit to you. And I know you have to call it how you see it. And, you know, and sometimes, like some managers, like we said, we don't like what we hear. But in fairness to the two of you, you persevered all year, and you're there consistently putting the show out. And it's interesting what the stuff, and even the reports and the final whistle that after matches and stuff like that, you know, it's brilliant to see. And, you know, and I can't give you enough credit. And we, two is, by the way, in case I forget to say, is very welcome to Peamount on the 11th of November.
I will be there.
You give us the VIP treatment up in Peamount. Is be very welcome to two is.
Be very hard
myself and Andy have already been discussing there. We'll be there. We'll be there.
Should I bring a Sligo Rovers scarf with me? Or
yes, Sligo, yeah, very welcome. Yeah, that's very welcome. Yeah.
James, I have to ask. Lauren posted a photo on social media the other day of the two of you after the winning the league. What's it like though, having won the league the third time and having your daughter by your side?
Yeah, like I say, it's amazing. It really is, because I know there's a lot of fathers involved in the women's football, and their daughters are playing for their teams. You know, so I've been coaching since Lauren, since she was under 14s in Peamount, you know, and I've tormented the life out of her over the years, different stages, the rows we used to have in the cars going home. And I'm sure all the fathers, parents out there can relate to this when you coach your own daughter, you know, and I used to embarrass the life out of her at times. But, you know, at moments like this, you know, and you see her develop with her and her teammates, you know, it makes you immensely proud. You know, it's be brilliant, yeah.
I suppose before we let you go, James, last night's game, you sound like you watched or most of it at least, or saw the highlights maybe of the game last night. Your thoughts on the game? We better include it in our conversation today.
Yeah, listen, I thought again, shocking that Sligo had to travel up to Dublin on a Wednesday night, you know. And one of the good things about us getting knocked out of the cup against Athlone was that we would have had to travel to Wexford last night originally, and that game got brought back then to last Saturday, which was a positive. But again, the midweek fixtures, yeah, you need to be very careful how they get arranged. Again, I thought brilliant for Shelbourne, you know, again persevered, and they got the winner right at the end. I'm sure they were delighted. But again, I felt so sorry for Steve and the Sligo girls, because they're a great bunch. You know, and they're working really hard up there. You know, some really good players there, and I think, you know, it was a credit to them that the forms that he put in terrible conditions.
I was in Talca last night and started thinking, you're looking at the rain. I was having a chat with somebody underneath the dugout, the dressing rooms, and I started saying, "Well, I was nearly saying, let's bet any bets on DLR going on, the DLR Shamrock Rovers game being called off." And you're looking out here and you're thinking, if this game is called off and Sligo travel all the way to Dublin and that game was to get called off, you could just even think, like, for a midweek game, like, I know you're saying you were delighted that your game was played on Saturday. I wasn't. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't, because it made a horrible clash, which I would have been in Wexford last night if I had been there. But then you run the risk of the game being called off again and having to be refixed, because we've seen quite a lot of games being postponed in recent weeks, and it's probably one of the hindrances of this year is the fact of how stop-start the season has been. Like, how do you stay consistent, James?
Yeah, and this season has been weird in terms of all the stops. Like, we've had about 3 or 4 different little mini pre-seasons all year, and that's tough. It's tough on everybody. Like, it's hard to build momentum. I think we'd only played 3 in 18 weeks or something, 3 league games. Obviously with the World Cup, that had a massive impact on it, but we probably finished too early. The truth be known, when you consider the amount of players from the National League actually made the squad, you know, but it is what it is. We can learn from that going forward. But again, it's all about the players buying into everything and working hard and motivating themselves to be better.
Yeah, of course, a bunch of fixtures this weekend as well. Just run through them quickly. Cork host Athlone on 3 p.m. on Turner's Cross on Saturday. Wexford Youth, Shamrock Rovers, same time in Carrick Park, and Treaty United and Galway United. So you're off again this week. Will you take the opportunity to actually take the weekend off, or because it's a rare enough event, you know, you're giving out about not having games? Is it nice to get those weekends off when they do pop around?
The players love it. They love to get a bit of time off. You know, but I might try and catch in the Galway Treaty game. Because we play Galway in our next match. I'd like to see teams live, you know, rather than watch them on the screen, you know. So I may do that if my wife allows me. She doesn't know it yet, you know. But we'll have to see what happens.
Bring the old lad down to Galway again, will you? I know, because I know a couple of weeks ago, Breifne, I was going to UCD. I was going to the Bowl for a game, and I just chatted to James. He was going to Sligo. I was going to Limerick. Only the game was called off. James, I have to ask this because I've been thinking about this the last day or so. When you come into Peamount, the senior team, the first time, you had a bunch of kids. All the players had just gone. They just left. The DLR Waves, UCD Waves at the time, had taken most of the players at that stage. When you look back to that, did you ever think you'd have 3 National League titles, considering the rebuilding job that had to happen at that stage?
No, definitely not. No. At that time, I remember it was a tough time for Peamount because they'd all left. You know, I think Eileen at the time had moved on to the UCD, and a lot of players had left with her. And then there was an in between period, Robbie Mulligan and Christy Lockheed as well. So there wasn't that many senior players left at that stage, and a lot of the young players came through, like Nia Farley's and Nisha McAloon and Eleanor Ryan Doyle and Lauren O'Callaghan, David Byrne, Lucy McCartan. They were all only, like, people going about young players, they were all only 15, 16 at the time. And mixed them. Amber Barrett was like a senior player nearly with them, and you had Heather Payne as well, Ron McLaughlin at the time, and you know there's a lot of good young players there coming through, you know. So, you know, for us to be still there, you know, and still plugging away, you know, it's great. Because Peamount, in fairness to Peamount, you got to give them credit, and that, you know, they are. I would always say it, and people will, yeah, you would say this, but I think it's one of the best clubs for young female players to come up and learn their craft and do well. You know, there's great other academies, and Shelbourne have a great academy as well, and wherever, you know. But I think Peamount, it's the women. It's probably the only club, and not this down to the likes of Kate, the chairperson, and Elaine and Dennis, you know, and Bill, that it's probably one of the only clubs that would put women's football ahead of the men's. You know, I'd be shocked for saying that now, but it's I really think it is. You know, there's not many clubs can say that. So I really think it's a really good learning ground.
I always say without Dennis, Peamount United wouldn't be the same without Dennis Cummins. I always say that. Yeah. I think it's evident. Like, you look at the lads will play on the Astro, but the main pitch is being kept for the women. And I think that's a credit.
Don't say that, Aaron. Don't be saying that. You're feeling all that the coaches of Peamount there.
Listen, I think they're dead. I think Peamount are dead right, because the women deserve all they get. And it's funny to think you're the longest serving manager as well in the National League.
You put a target on his back now. He might be.
No, I think there's another couple of National Leagues in this Peamount side.
In terms of that, James, you talk about the focus on women's football and men's football, and to bring it right back full circle to what I asked you at the very start, in terms of Peamount being a standalone women's side, I'm not completely convinced that women's football can grow the way it should when it's second fiddle to the men's game within a club. And I think you're right. The vast majority of men's teams don't have an interest in women's football. I know I was involved in Sligo Rovers when they started out back in the day, and to say that the club weren't eager to get involved from day one is probably an understatement. It took a lot of persuading. It took a lot of back and forth for that to happen. It seems to have changed now, and that's brilliant. But it definitely isn't on clubs' radars until they get to a certain point. With teams managing to stay separate and independent, like Peamount have, it does give it that strength to push on and to really grow the women's game. And that's probably one of the main reasons why Peamount is as strong as they are. Is that fair?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think it's great that men's teams are supporting the women's team. Like, it's a really good model if the men's teams are really, you know, genuine, and they really want to believe in equality, and they want to share their resources, and they want to make sure that, you know, what they're pumping into the men's, they're going to pump into the women's. Like, it's a really good model in theory. And if that's happening, if the right people are in place to make that happen, great. I think that's fantastic. There's absolutely, I have no issues with that at all. But alongside that, I think, you know, if there's a standalone women's team that wants to grow and develop and progress, and, you know, that should be supported as well. And it shouldn't be a kind of pressure put on them where they can't do that. You know, and there is really something nice and positive about being a standalone women's team now, and they use the top dogs in the club. And that's the priority, and you know, that's where the resources are going to get pumped into, you know, and it's up to that, and there's pressure on Peamount to make sure that they can pull their own weight as well, that they can attract private investment as well, you know, to make that happen. Like use Glasgow City over in Scotland as a standalone club as well. They've been thriving over the years, you know. So we see what happens.
Finally, before we let you go, the race for second place is probably the biggest talking point now over the next couple of weeks. You don't play Shells or Shamrock Rovers before the end of the season. You're kind of independent from it. Your thoughts on who's going to wrap up the season and grab that second place spot?
It's going to be very close. Again, I think Shamrock Rovers have had they're a very good side, and they've some superb players in their team. You know, and Shamrock and Shelbourne, you know, and you know, they've been fantastic champions the past 2 seasons. You know, they've done brilliantly, and they have the cup final to look forward to. I think it's going to be close. It's very hard one to call who end up coming second. It was great for Shelbourne to get the 3 points during the week. Maybe Shelbourne might get distracted with the cup final, and Shamrock Rovers might push through there a little bit. Maybe.
I thought he was going to know what. I thought he was going to say Shelbourne there, because I've seen an alliance forming this week that I never thought I'd see. Shelbourne fans supporting Peamount winning the league because it means Rovers don't win it, and Peamount people supporting Shelbourne because it means Rovers don't win the cup semi-final. I never thought I'd see that alliance, considering the rivalry between the clubs in recent years. Really thought you were going to pick Shells.
My enemy with my friends basically rings true on that one. James, listen, we've taken up most of your afternoon. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us. I know you're back on the training pitch tonight ahead of those 2 final games. Plenty of work to do. The real hard work starts now, planning for the 2024 season. So will you be in the hot seat we have to ask, and we're presuming the answer is a yes, but will you be in the hot seat in Peamount in 4 months' time when the league resumes?
I would hope so. You know, we obviously have to sit down and draw up a plan for next season. You know, so we see what happens.
Excellent. Listen, thanks for joining us, and a pleasure to have you on board as always. We'll talk to, I'm sure at some stage, we might even see you in PRL Park on the 11th for celebrations for Peamount.
Yeah, and you're very welcome, lads. The two of you really mean it, and fair play to all the hard work you've put in throughout the season. It's brilliant.
Excellent. Thanks very much for joining us as well. We really appreciate it. James O'Callaghan there. Phenomenal. 1 minute and then we're going to wrap up the show, Aaron. But last night we talked about it a little bit with James. Who impressed you last night? Because I have to talk about Amber Hardy. I thought she was.
I tweeted about her last night.
Yeah.
What a I thought, listen, forget that that's the second goal. It's a blustery, it's a horrible conditions, there's a massive breeze blowing. Forget that what happened there. Like, for 16, making her debut, made some superb saves. And by all accounts, from speaking to people, she wasn't even on the radar up until recently as well, and didn't look out of place at all. I thought Christy Gray took her goal very well for Shells. Emma Hansbury, when she opened the score, it was a nice finish. And then Megan Smith-Lynch just has a habit of scoring late goals. Don't care what anybody says. It 100% wasn't a shot. She told me on the record that she doesn't know what it was herself. So she's at least admitting that she. But I thought the goalkeeper Sligo was the best player on the pitch last night, Amber Hardy.
And the funny thing is, I was singing Bonnie McKiernan's praises on the last show because of her performance. Sligo, they've struggled in the goalkeeping position. I think they've had 7 different keepers at some point in and out of the squad in the last year and a half. I think they may have nailed on with those 2. I think the exciting times ahead.
What happened to Keith O'Connor? I haven't seen her involved since she's.
Yeah, name's not even on my radar. That's saying how much Sligo have struggled. But it is. As we've said, Anne-Marie Uliak's made a huge difference at Treaty. They've conceded 42 goals this season. That would have been triple figures last year. Cork have had triple figure seasons as well. Sligo probably in that ballpark last year. So for them to all be under 50 at this point of the year, it tightens it all up. It's a huge improvement. And I think that, as James mentioned in the interview, is probably the main thing. Listen, Aaron, we've run out of time. That is it for this week. We will be back again early next week with another look back at the games this weekend. Those 3, obviously, whether it's Cork, Wexford, or Treaty, and you might bump into James O'Callaghan, get him to sign autographs, that sort of stuff. Listen, we'll be back with you again shortly to chat about all things women's football in Ireland. Of course, the international game, we'll talk about that more in next week's show as well once this weekend's games take place. Aaron, pleasure as always. Thank you very much for chatting to us.